I'm Ngaere Shelton. Now I live down at Waihau, just half an hour out of Tolliga. My father, yeah, he was on the Wellington Mounted Rifles. They went over to Egypt with their horses, and then they did some training there, but then they were sent from there to Gallipoli without their horses. And he didn't say terribly much, talk about the war really. He only said two things. He said that they were given horse meat to eat in Egypt, and the other thing he said was never turn your back on the Turk. And those are the only things he's ever said. He was shepherding before he went to the war. He falsified his age and went away early. And his father said that when he came back, he'd back him into a farm of his own. But while he was away, there was that very bad flu epidemic in Hawke's Bay. It might have been everywhere. And his father caught the flu and died. So when Dad came back, he found a job managing a sheep station. And that's where we were when the Second World War broke out. Copper trails on the footpaths on the main street, and knitting scarves. Always we had to knit scarves in basket weave. The adults knitted socks and mittens and balaclavas, but not us. They were too hard for us. I remember Mum making up parcels and cooking the fruit cakes in tins like baking powder tins, and when they were cooked and cold, the lids were put on so that they were easy to pack. And then I don't know what else she put on the parcels, but then she wrapped the whole lot up in calico and sewed them up and sent them. And the soldiers used to write back and say what they liked and what they didn't like, what they wanted more of next time, and what had travelled well and what hadn't travelled properly, and things like that. And then every Friday, all through the war years, my mother and other ladies went down to the Red Cross rooms and did papier-mâché. And my mother worked very hard for the Red Cross and eventually was awarded the British Empire Medal. And I think after that the war really, for us, centred on my youngest uncle, who went away in the first echelon. And we used to go down and watch the troop trains going through and say goodbye to the various boys we knew. And once he was stationed in Trentham, we used to have lots and lots of trips down there to see him. And eventually he let us know that he was going overseas, so we went down and watched them all marching right down through the street in Wellington with the lovely band music. It was all very moving at the time. And they moved on to I knew all the names we went down so often, I knew all the names of all the wharves and all the names of all the big ships that were in there. I can only remember now the Empress of Britain and the Empress of Japan, and they were the troop ships waiting for the men. And once they all went on to the ships, we used to go in every morning to see whether they'd gone, and they just didn't go. Obviously they weren't allowed to say when the ship was going. And one day we went in and sure enough they'd gone. And he went to Egypt, because he used to send us back embroidered cushion covers and things like that. And then he was involved in the Battle of Crete, and he was stationed in England as well. And my grandparents had married in England in 1901 and come out to New Zealand and left all their families behind. And so my uncle got to know all of them again, so that was a good thing. I don't honestly remember him coming back. Well, he did. And then when I met my husband and married in 1952, I realised that he must have been he was quite a bit older than me, and he must have been on some of those troop trains that we saw go through. And he went to New Caledonia, the Philippines and Italy, and at some stage he was in Egypt, and he was on a route march, and he saw a soldier sitting on the side of the road, and had one shoe off, one boot off, and he was examining his foot, the blisters on his foot through a hole in his sock, and it turned out to be Doug McNeil, who lived up here at Kiori. So the two friends from Tolliga had met away over there at the other side of the world. So then he came home and got a very good job on shepherding on a hernia, and his brother took up wool classing down in Hawke's Bay, and they hadn't been there long and thought they were settled, and the government were going to take Raraw Station up here where Greg is now, for rehab, unless the two boys came back and settled on it. So they gave up their jobs and came back here. So that's about all I know, but when we were living up here at Raraw where Greg is now, Henry's mother came up to see me one afternoon in her little black car, and it had a really dirty, dusty back window, and someone had written into it in the dust, "Well done, Mother of Uawa." And I asked her what that was all about, and she said, she'd just been awarded the MBE.